The silver ships appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system like deadly flowers blooming in the darkness of space. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, watching the blue-green planet through the viewing screen. His reptilian eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he studied the primitive world below. Another easy conquest, he muttered to his second-in-command. The intelligence reports were clear. These humans still used chemical rockets and basic nuclear technology. They would surrender within hours of his arrival. On Lunar Station, Commander Kim Hyun was having the worst day of his 20-year military career. The deep space sensors had been screaming warnings for 3 days now. 12 unknown ships, each the size of a small city, were heading straight for Earth at impossible speeds. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," called out Lieutenant Park Gina from her communications post. Her voice was steady, but Kim could see her hands shaking slightly. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that looked like it had crawled out of humanity's worst nightmares. Admiral Vextar's scaled face filled the display, his yellow eyes burning with cold arrogance. Primitive creatures of the third planet, the alien's voice boomed through the station speakers, automatically translated by their computers. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Great Zephyrian Empire. Your world now belongs to us. Surrender immediately, or we will destroy everything you hold dear." Kim Hyun looked around his command center. His crew was young, most had never seen real combat. They were engineers, technicians, scientists. But they were also human, and humans had never been good at backing down from a fight. "Send this back," Kim said, his voice calm despite the fear gnawing at his stomach. "This is Commander Kim Hyun of the United Earth Defense Force. You are not welcome in our system. Leave now, or face the consequences." On the alien ship, Vextar's officers made strange chittering sounds that might have been laughter. The Admiral's mandibles clicked with amusement. "Fire a warning shot," he ordered. Perhaps these creatures need a demonstration. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the Zephyrian warship, striking Lunar Station's outer ring. The blast vaporized a kilometer-long section in an instant. Emergency alarms shrieked throughout the facility as blast doors slammed shut to contain the damage. 17 dead, 43 wounded, reported Lieutenant Choi Sumi from damage control. Her face was pale, but her voice remained professional. Kim Hyun felt something cold settle in his chest. Not fear exactly, but the familiar calm that came before battle. He had felt it during the corporate wars, when humanity had first learned to fight among the stars. "All stations, this is Lunar Command," he broadcast across the solar system. "Code Black is now in effect. I repeat, Code Black is now in effect." The transmission reached every human outpost from Mars to the outer planets. On the Red Planet, Colonel Yang Minho received the signal in his underground bunker and immediately began activating hidden weapon systems. On Europa, Captain Song Nari felt her blood turn to ice as the war code reached her station. Admiral Vextar watched with satisfaction as small ships began launching from various human installations. "Evacuation vessels," he told his tactical officer. "Standard panic response from a primitive species." But these were not evacuation ships. The first wave of Earth's defenders consisted of fighters piloted by veterans like Major Kang Woo-bin, who had cut his teeth fighting pirates in the asteroid belt. Their ships were small, crude by galactic standards, but the pilots inside them carried something the aliens had not expected: absolute determination. "All fighters, this is Strike Leader," Major Kang transmitted as he led his squadron toward the alien fleet. "Remember what they just did to Lunar Station. Make them pay for every meter." The human fighters opened fire at maximum range, launching streams of metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds. The impacts against the Zephyrian shields were tiny at first, barely registering on their instruments. But the humans kept coming. Wave after wave of fighters, followed by converted cargo ships bristling with improvised weapons, then larger military vessels that had been hidden throughout the system. What started as pinpricks against the alien shields began to add up. "Shield strength down to 70%, reported Vextar's engineering officer, confusion clear in his voice. "These weapons are primitive, but there are so many of them." Captain Song Nari's corvette managed to slip under the shields of an alien destroyer, her missile striking the hull directly before defensive fire tore her ship apart. She died with a smile on her face, knowing her attack had drawn first blood. "How are they doing this?" Vextar demanded as his fleet's shields continued to weaken under the constant bombardment. "They should have fled by now." His science officer looked up from his instruments with something like fear in his alien eyes. "Sir, they are not fighting like any species we have encountered before. They do not seem to care about their technological disadvantage. They just keep attacking." The battle raged for hours. Human ships that should have been destroyed by the first alien shot instead continued fighting until they were nothing but floating debris. The aliens had superior weapons and shields, but they had never faced an enemy that refused to give up. Commander Kim Hyun watched the tactical display from Lunar Station's damaged command center. His people were dying out there, but they were also winning. The alien shields were failing, and their perfect formation was beginning to break apart under the relentless human assault. All remaining units, he broadcast, close to point-blank range. Show them what happens when you threaten our home. Admiral Vextar watched in growing horror as another of his cruisers listed out of formation, its hull breached in dozens of places. This was not how conquest was supposed to work. Advanced civilizations were supposed to surrender when faced with superior technology. Withdraw to safe distance, he ordered reluctantly. We need to reassess this situation. As the alien ships pulled back, Kim Hyun allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. They had blooded the enemy's nose, but this was just the beginning. The aliens would be back with more ships and heavier weapons. On Earth, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Oh Seung-won watched the battle reports with cold calculation. The aliens had revealed their hand, shown their capabilities and tactics. Now humanity could prepare for the real war. The Empire had made their first mistake. They had assumed humans would break after the first blow. They were about to learn that humans got stronger when pushed to the edge. Admiral Kethvar arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system 3 days later with enough firepower to crack planets. His massive fleet of 60 warships spread across space like a deadly constellation. The first attack had been a test, he told himself. Now these stubborn humans would face the full might of the Zephyrian Empire. Begin bombardment of their outer colonies, he commanded from his flagship's bridge. Make it thorough. These creatures need to understand the price of resistance. The Imperial fleet opened fire without warning. Mars orbital station vanished in a ball of superheated plasma, taking 3,000 civilians with it. Europa base cracked open like an eggshell, its protective dome shattered by concentrated beam weapons. The message was clear: surrender or watch your people die. On the surviving lunar station, Captain Yo Naeung received the casualty reports with growing fury. The aliens were deliberately targeting civilian installations, murdering non-combatants to break human morale. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. Send this on all frequencies, she ordered her communications officer. The gloves are off. Execute vengeance protocol immediately. The transmission reached every human installation across the solar system. On Ceres, Commander Park Seung-jun felt his hands tighten into fists as he thought of his wife, who had been on Europa when it was destroyed. On Titan base, Colonel Jung Minju began activating weapon systems that had been hidden for decades. But the most important message reached a facility buried beneath Antarctica's ice that officially did not exist. Dr. Lee Soo-young had been waiting for this moment for 15 years, ever since the first crashed alien probe had been secretly recovered. Phoenix Protocol is authorized, she announced to her research team. Around her, massive screens displayed technical readouts for projects that had consumed the resources of entire nations. Unseal all black projects. Begin immediate deployment. Deep beneath Earth's oceans, in facilities disguised as geological research stations, enormous hangar doors began opening for the first time. Ships that had never seen sunlight started their launch sequences, vessels built using technology reverse-engineered from alien wrecks that the public never knew existed. Admiral Kethvar watched his bombardment with satisfaction. The humans' outer defenses were crumbling, their colonies burning. It was time to finish this primitive species once and for all. Target their home planet, he ordered. Prepare for final bombardment. But as his fleet moved toward Earth, something impossible appeared on their sensors. Massive ship signatures were detected between them and the planet, but visual scanners showed only empty space. Sir, we're reading multiple large vessels, his tactical officer reported with confusion. But we cannot see them. This should not be possible. The answer came in the form of weapons fire that seemed to emerge from nowhere. Beams of coherent energy that made Imperial plasma cannons look primitive struck the lead Zephyrian ships with devastating effect. Commander Kim Jun-soo stood on the bridge of the EDS Prometheus, humanity's first true starship. Around him, revolutionary cloaking systems kept his vessel invisible while his crew operated weapons that should not have existed for another century. All Ghost Fleet units, weapons free, he transmitted on secure channels. Show them what we've really been building. The battle that followed shocked the galaxy. Invisible human ships materialized out of nowhere, striking with precision that devastated the Imperial formation. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy they could not see, using weapons they did not understand. Captain Song Hyun-woo commanded the destroyer Gwangju, which appeared directly behind an alien cruiser and opened fire at point-blank range. The enemy ship's shields collapsed in seconds under the concentrated assault from weapons that combined human engineering with captured alien technology. How is this possible? Admiral Kethva roared as his flagship shuddered under fire from 3 directions at once. Our intelligence said they were primitive. His science officer looked up from his instruments with barely concealed terror. Sir, these energy signatures match hegemonic-class weapons systems. But that technology should take centuries to master. Well, they mastered it in decades, Kethva snarled as another impact rocked his ship. The humans had not just stolen Imperial technology, they had improved it, made it better than the original designs. The human attack was relentless. Stealth ships appeared and vanished like ghosts, striking vital systems before disappearing again. Swarms of fighters emerged from cloaked carriers, their pilots executing maneuvers that defied everything the Empire knew about space combat. Major Kang Soyoung led her interceptor squadron through the alien formation like a school of deadly fish, her enhanced fighters dancing around plasma bolts that moved too slowly to track them. The humans had not just copied alien technology, they had combined it with their own innovations to create something entirely new. As his fleet took devastating losses, Admiral Kethva made a desperate decision. If conventional weapons could not break these humans, he would use forbidden ones. Launch the planet killer missiles, he commanded. If we cannot conquer them, we will end them completely. But even this genocidal gambit failed. The human defense grid intercepted the massive warheads before they could reach Earth. More than intercepted, the missiles were captured intact, their technology ready to be studied and turned against their creators. The retreating Imperial fleet carried news back to their commanders that would shake the Empire to its foundations. The humans were not just more advanced than reported, they had been deliberately hiding their capabilities, allowing the Empire to underestimate them completely. On Earth, General Oh Seung-won watched the tactical displays with cold satisfaction. The aliens had revealed their true nature by targeting civilians. Now they would face the consequences of awakening humanity's fury. Send word to all fleet commanders, he ordered. Phase 2 is authorized. It's time to take this fight to them. In the depths of space, Admiral Kethva transmitted his report with shaking appendages. The humans possessed technology that rivaled the Empire's greatest achievements, and they had developed it in secret over mere decades. Worse, they seemed to improve everything they touched, turning captured Imperial weapons into superior versions of themselves. The Empire had awakened something terrible in the darkness between stars. Something that learned quickly, adapted constantly, and refused to surrender no matter the odds. The real war was just beginning. Admiral Vorthak arrived with the largest Imperial fleet ever assembled, 60 warships including the massive dreadnoughts Destroyer of Worlds and Final Judgment. He had studied the previous battles carefully and believed he understood the human threat. They had captured some Imperial technology and learned to use it. Nothing more. He was catastrophically wrong. In a laboratory beneath Seoul, Dr. Park Min-sok smiled as he watched the final tests of humanity's latest creation. The alien technology from previous battles had been completely reverse-engineered and rebuilt from the ground up. What emerged was not a copy of Imperial systems, but something entirely new. The adaptive shields are ready, reported his colleague Dr. Kim Nae-yeon. They learn and adjust to incoming fire in real time. After the first few hits, enemy weapons become almost useless. Dr. Park nodded with satisfaction. The aliens had made a critical mistake, they had left wreckage behind after each battle. Wreckage that contained intact examples of their most advanced technology, just waiting to be studied and improved. When Admiral Vorthak's fleet entered the solar system, they faced an enemy that had evolved beyond recognition. Human ships now carried shields that adapted to attacks within seconds, weapons that learned from each engagement, and computers that could predict Imperial moves 3 steps ahead. Captain Lee Jin-hyuk commanded the upgraded destroyer Seoul, leading a squadron against the Imperial advance guard. As enemy plasma bolts struck his shields, the defensive systems automatically adjusted their frequency, reducing incoming damage by 90% within moments. Their weapons only work for the first few shots, he transmitted to his squadron. Get close and stay mobile. The battle became a deadly game of adaptation. The Zephyrians would modify their weapon frequencies, only to watch human shields adjust faster than they could compensate. Imperial tactics that had worked for centuries proved useless against human commanders who seemed to read their minds. But the real shock came when human ships began infiltrating Imperial formations electronically. Lieutenant Colonel Jung Minju's stealth fighters did not just attack enemy vessels, they hacked into their computer systems and turned their own technology against them. Enemy communication frequencies identified, reported her electronic warfare officer Lieutenant Park Ji-young. Uploading virus packages now. Within minutes, Zephyrian ships were receiving false orders from their own command systems. Vessels fired on their allies, navigation computers guided ships into collision courses, and weapon systems locked onto friendly targets. The humans had turned the Empire's greatest strength, their unified technology, into a fatal weakness. Admiral Vorthak watched his perfect formation dissolve into chaos from his flagship's bridge. What is happening to our fleet? Sir, the humans have somehow penetrated our command protocols, his communications officer reported in panic. They are sending false orders, corrupting our data, even accessing our medical files. The implications hit Vorthak like a physical blow. The humans had not just mastered Imperial technology, they had surpassed it, adding capabilities that the Empire had never imagined possible. The most terrifying development came when human boarding parties began attacking Imperial ships directly. Soldiers like Sergeant Major Kim Young-ho wore powered armor that combined the best of both civilizations, alien energy shields merged with human mechanical engineering and adaptive systems. Boarding party on Deck 7, came the panicked report. The humans are using our own weapons against us, but their armor seems immune to our standard plasma rifles. Colonel Yang Minho led the assault on the flagship destroyer of worlds, moving through alien corridors with practiced efficiency. His team had trained for months using captured Imperial ship designs, learning every weakness in their construction. Remember, he transmitted to his soldiers, they rely too much on their technology. Get close, stay mobile, and use their overconfidence against them. The Zephyrian crew, trained to fight at long range with superior firepower, found themselves helpless in close combat. Humans, evolved from hunters and pack predators, excelled at the brutal face-to-face fighting that terrified most civilized species. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, Commander Park Seung-jun demonstrated another uniquely human innovation. The mining platforms that aliens had dismissed as harmless industrial equipment revealed their true nature as massive weapons capable of accelerating asteroids to devastating speeds. Target the heavy dreadnought, he ordered his crew. Load the special package. The special package was a hollowed-out asteroid filled with human-designed antimatter charges. When it struck the Imperial ship's shields at 12% of light speed, the explosion lit up half the solar system. Dr. Lee Soo-young, monitoring the battle from her Antarctic facility, marveled at how quickly her people adapted to each new challenge. It was a uniquely human trait, the ability to look at any problem and find not just one solution, but 3 different ways to turn it into an advantage. Our learning rate is exceeding all projections, reported Dr. Choi Yunyo. We are now immune to 60% of Imperial weapons, and the percentage climbs every minute. Admiral Vorthak's fleet, which had entered the system with supreme confidence, found itself fighting a losing battle against an enemy that seemed to evolve during combat. Human ships that should have been destroyed by the first attack instead adapted and returned fire with weapons that grew stronger with each shot. Sir, his science officer reported with barely controlled fear, their improvement curve is unprecedented. Our computers estimate that within hours, they will be completely immune to our weapons while their firepower increases exponentially. In desperation, Admiral Vorthak authorized the use of planet-killer weapons, massive missiles designed to crack worlds in half. But even these ultimate weapons failed. The human defense grid not only intercepted them but captured the warheads intact, adding their technology to humanity's growing arsenal. As his surviving ships limped away from the solar system, Vorthak transmitted a report that would terrify the Empire's leadership. The humans were not just using Imperial technology, they were improving it beyond recognition, creating hybrid systems that surpassed anything the galaxy had ever seen. On Earth, General Oh Seung-won watched the retreating alien fleet with grim satisfaction. The Empire had revealed their willingness to commit genocide rather than accept defeat. That changed everything. Send the message to all commanders, he ordered. The Empire has shown us what they really are. Rules of engagement are now unrestricted. It is time for Phase 3. The real war was about to begin. Emperor Colthax paced across the marble floors of his throne room on Zephyria Prime, the capital world of an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Reports of defeat and rebellion flooded in from across his domain, and at the center of every disaster were the humans. Explain this to me, he demanded of Grand Admiral Zekma, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. How has a primitive species that cannot even travel faster than light brought my empire to its knees? Zekma's scaled hide had turned pale with stress. Your Majesty, the humans possess abilities we never anticipated. They learn faster than any species we have encountered. They take our technology and make it better within days, not decades. Beyond the orbit of Neptune, Admiral Kim Junsu stood on the bridge of humanity's newest creation. The EDS Retribution was a kilometer-long battleship that represented the best of human engineering combined with captured alien technology. It was invisible to enemy sensors, armed with weapons that could crack moons, and crewed by people who had grown up knowing they were at war. All systems ready for Operation Backtrack, reported his executive officer Commander Yang Soyang. Around them, displays showed the locations of Imperial supply bases, communication relays, and military installations throughout the galaxy. Operation Backtrack was humanity's answer to attempted genocide. Instead of waiting for the next alien attack, they would take the war to the enemy. They would strike at Imperial supply lines, free enslaved species, and show the galaxy that the mighty Empire could bleed. Captain Song Hyun-woo commanded the First Strike Force, targeting an Imperial supply depot in the Kepler system. His ship, the Gwangju, materialized out of empty space directly above the unsuspecting base, its weapons already charging. All units, this is Strike Leader, he transmitted to his fleet. Remember, we are not just here to destroy supplies. We are here to send a message to every enslaved world in the galaxy. The Imperial garrison at Kepler had been expecting routine patrol activity, not a coordinated assault by ships that appeared from nowhere. Human forces struck with devastating precision, their hybrid weapons cutting through alien defenses like they were made of paper. Lieutenant Colonel Jung Minju led her stealth fighters against the base's communication arrays. Her pilots had spent months studying captured Imperial tactical manuals, learning every weakness in their defensive systems. Cut their communications first, she ordered. Then we take the command center alive. We need prisoners for intelligence. The real shock came when human boarding parties began systematically capturing Imperial personnel. Veterans like Colonel Yang Minho had developed interrogation techniques that were disturbingly effective against species that had never faced determined human questioning. The Galactic Convention protects prisoners of war, whimpered the Imperial base commander as he was processed by Sergeant Major Kim Young-ho's team. The Galactic Convention died when you tried to genocide our planet, replied Captain Song Mik-young coldly. Now you are going to tell us everything about Imperial fleet movements, supply routes, and defensive positions. The intelligence gathered from the Kepler raid revolutionized human understanding of Imperial operations. Within days, Dr. Park Min-sok and Dr. Kim Naeon had mapped out the Empire's entire logistics network using captured computers. It is incredible, Dr. Kim reported to Earth's War Council. The Empire is massive, but it is also rigid. They use the same supply routes, the same communication methods, the same battle tactics across hundreds of star systems. General Oh Seung-won studied the intelligence with the trained eye of a lifetime soldier. So they are predictable. Good. That means we can hurt them where it really counts. The next phase targeted Imperial communication relays, the quantum networks that allowed instant communication across the galaxy. Human strike teams began systematically destroying these installations, using modified alien stealth technology to approach undetected. Commander Park Seung-jun led the assault on the relay station at Alpha Centauri. The facility, considered impregnable by Imperial standards, fell to human forces in less than 6 hours. Communication relay destroyed, he reported back to Earth Command. The Empire just lost real-time contact with 17 core systems. The psychological impact was as important as the tactical damage. Across the galaxy, species that had lived under Imperial rule for generations began to whisper about the humans who could strike anywhere without warning. But the masterstroke came when human hackers penetrated the Imperial military database and began broadcasting a simple message throughout their communication networks. The message was transmitted in every known alien language, accompanied by footage of human forces liberating Imperial prison worlds. To all enslaved peoples of the galaxy, the broadcast began, the Terran Federation offers you what the Empire never will, the chance to determine your own fate. Join us, and together we will break the chains that have bound you for thousands of years. The response was immediate and overwhelming. On dozens of worlds, slave revolts broke out as alien species saw proof that the Empire could be defeated. The humans had done more than win military victories, they had inspired hope throughout the galaxy. Captain Yo Naeong demonstrated the new human approach during a raid on Imperial shipyards at Vega. Instead of attacking the heavily defended facility directly, her forces infiltrated the worker population and convinced the enslaved aliens to sabotage their own construction projects. You are not helping us, she told the assembled alien workers through translators. You are helping yourselves. When this war ends, you will be free. The result was chaos throughout the Imperial war machine. Ships exploded on assembly lines, weapon systems failed during tests, and entire fleets found themselves stranded without supplies as logistics networks crumbled. Emperor Colthax received reports of uprisings across his domain with growing terror. 17 imperial governors had already offered to surrender in exchange for protection from their own forces. Marshal every available fleet, he commanded his war council desperately. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon in our arsenal. The humans must be crushed before this rebellion spreads further. But it was already too late. The Empire had shown the galaxy they could be beaten, and hope was spreading faster than Imperial forces could contain it. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Kim Junsu smiled grimly as intelligence reports showed an Empire in complete chaos. The hunters had become the hunted. The great throne room of Zephyria Prime had never echoed with such desperate voices. Emperor Colthax sat upon his crystal throne, watching his 3,000-year empire crumble before his eyes. Reports streamed in from across the galaxy, 300 star systems in open rebellion, his fleet scattered and broken, and at the heart of every disaster, the humans. Your Majesty, Grand Admiral Zekmar reported with barely controlled panic, we have lost all contact with the Outer Rim territories. The core worlds are barely holding. And the human fleets, they are no longer just defending their home. They are actively hunting us. Across the galaxy, Admiral Kim Junsu's task force had become a legend that terrified Imperial forces. His flagship Retribution appeared without warning at Imperial strongholds, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Each victory inspired more rebellions, more hope among the enslaved species. The Corvani's system has fallen, reported Commander Park Minji from her intelligence station. The local population rose up when our ships arrived. They are begging to join the Terran Federation. Captain Lee Do-yoon shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago, these same aliens were cowering under Imperial rule. Now they are fighting alongside us against their former masters. The transformation was remarkable. Human military advisors like Colonel Yang Minho were training alien resistance fighters across dozens of worlds. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were learning to use captured Imperial weapons against their oppressors. On the former Imperial fortress world of Corvanis, Commander Park Seung-jun worked with local rebel leaders to establish a new government. The aliens, a peaceful species called the Melodians, had been forced to mine rare minerals for the Empire for over 800 years. We thought freedom was impossible, their leader Harmonisinger told him through a translator. Your people have shown us that even the mightiest oppressor can fall. But the real revolution was happening in the depths of space. Human engineers led by Dr. Lee Se-young had not only mastered Imperial technology, they had begun sharing it with their new alien allies. Rebel fleets now carried weapons that combined the best innovations from multiple species. The beauty of it, Dr. Lee explained to her research team, is that every species thinks differently. The Melodians understand harmonics better than we do. The Karate are natural engineers. When we combine all our knowledge, we create something no single species could achieve alone. Emperor Colthax felt the walls closing in as more reports arrived. His own generals were beginning to question his orders. Some had even suggested negotiating with the humans rather than facing total destruction. Negotiation is surrender, he declared to his war council. The Empire does not bargain with primitives. We will gather every remaining ship and crush this rebellion once and for all. Grand Admiral Zekmar hesitated before responding. Your Majesty, our remaining forces are barely sufficient to defend the core worlds. If we concentrate them for an attack and fail, then we die fighting, Colthax snarled. Better that than living as equals to lesser species. The final Imperial fleet was a shadow of the Empire's former might. 200 ships, many damaged from previous battles, carrying crews whose morale had been shattered by months of defeats. They gathered at the edge of the core worlds for one last desperate assault on human space. Admiral Kim Junsu watched their approach from the bridge of the Retribution with cold calculation. Intelligence reports indicated this was everything the Empire had left. If they could defeat this fleet, the war would be over. Sir, reported Commander Yang Soyeon, we are detecting over 300 Allied vessels joining our forces. The rebel fleets want to participate in the final battle. Indeed, ships from dozens of formerly enslaved species had arrived to fight alongside humanity. Melodian harmony ships that could disrupt enemy communications, karate engineering vessels that could repair damage in real time, and countless others who had found their courage through human example. Captain Song Hyun-woo commanded a mixed squadron of human and alien vessels as they engaged the Imperial vanguard. The difference in tactics was immediately obvious. Where Imperial forces still fought in rigid formations using outdated strategies, the Allied fleet moved like a living thing, adapting instantly to changing conditions. "All ships, this is Strike Leader," he transmitted. "Remember, we fight not just for Earth, but for every world that has suffered under Imperial rule." The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships using adaptive technology faced Imperial vessels piloted by crews who knew they were fighting for their civilization's survival. But the Empire's greatest weakness was their inability to change. They still fought like they had for centuries, while their enemies had evolved. Lieutenant Colonel Jung Minju's fighters swarmed through the Imperial formation like angry insects, their weapons learning and adapting to enemy defenses in real time. Behind them came waves of alien ships using tactics their species had developed during centuries of oppression. The turning point came when human boarding parties, led by veterans like Colonel Yang Minho, began capturing Imperial command ships intact. Instead of destroying them, they offered their crews a choice: surrender and join the new Galactic Order, or face the consequences of their Empire's crimes. "This is Colonel Yang Minho of the Terran Federation," he broadcast to the crew of an Imperial cruiser his forces had just boarded. "Your Empire is finished. Your choice is simple: help us build something better, or go down with the ship." Amazingly, many chose to surrender. Imperial soldiers who had spent their lives believing in their superiority found themselves working alongside the very species they had once enslaved. The galaxy was witnessing the birth of something unprecedented, a truly cooperative civilization. Emperor Colthax watched his final fleet crumble from his palace on Zephyria Prime. As human and allied forces closed in on the core worlds, he faced the unthinkable reality that his empire was dead. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Kim Jinsu received a transmission that would echo through history. It came from Zephyria Prime itself, broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Harmony Singer of the Melodian Liberation Front," the message began. "Zephyria Prime is free. The Emperor's palace has fallen. The age of empires is over. The age of cooperation has begun." Humanity had not just won a war, they had sparked a revolution that would reshape the galaxy forever.